Hi everybody, Pen here with Yoga Sizes. Today I'm really excited to have Seema Giri here today. She's an award-winning author, international author, and one of the books that she published, co-authored, is The Authorities with Dr. John Gary, Marci Shimoff. So I'm really thrilled to have her here, and she also talked about her autoimmune disease that she had and how she dealt with chronic pain. And so I just want to welcome Seema for being on the show today. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You're welcome. So I'll let you share with us about your story, in terms of your basically with the pain and how you are doing what you're doing now with the whole how you spreading the words of your story.
Okay, sure. Well, thank you for this opportunity. And about 25 years ago is when my illness started. I was in my early 20s, and all of a sudden I started feeling really lethargic and tired all the time. I was sleeping 16 to 18 hours a day and still felt like I was run over by a truck. It felt like a flu, a never-ending flu. You know, with your body aches, you're tired all the time. The only thing I didn't have was the sniffles and the cold. And it was really difficult for doctors to take me seriously. I went through 11 doctors who called me a hypochondriac because the test that they were using to find out what's wrong with me was always coming out to be normal. But I had these very, very real, visible inflammation in my legs, my arms, and everywhere. So they said, well, let's try this. Let's try anxiety medicine. Let's try depression medicine. So I realized that before long that I had become a human experiment, and at the same time, they didn't believe me that there was actually something wrong. They were calling me a hypochondriac. But there was a little voice inside my head that continuously said, you know, there's something wrong, there's something real. Don't believe the doctors, don't believe the family members, because at this point, we had been to so many doctors saying the same thing. Even my family was beginning to say, you know, maybe they're right. They're the experts. They have the credibility. Maybe it's all in your head. And that just became very demotivating and depressing. But I persisted because of that tiny little voice in my head. I persisted to find that one doctor that would believe me. And finally, the 12th doctor, I was in the East Coast at that time. This was at University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, that he believed me. And he did some different kind of tests. And in the 90s, autoimmune disease was not a well-known thing. So they didn't know what kind of testing to do, I suppose. So this was a young doctor who thought outside of the box, who was reading, I think, new things that he was coming across. So he finally did tests that actually revealed I had inflammation. There's something physically going wrong inside of me. And Pan, I can't tell you, that was like the happiest day of my life, because I had someone that validated that I was not crazy. Finally I had someone on my side. So he sent me to a specialist, and after 6 long years, I was finally diagnosed with fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, hypothyroid. I was diagnosed a little bit earlier, but with this combination, it was complete diagnosis. And then he went on to put me on 25 medications over time. Yeah, I think only 4 or 5 was due to the actual illness, but everything else was due to the side effects that I was having on being on those medications. So most of the time, it was really hard for me to take all of them, because some of the pills were so big. They were as big as my thumb. Maybe that's an over-exaggeration, but at least half of it, right? It was really, really difficult to take. I mean, I would gag. I felt like I was having more medication than I was having food. And but my breaking point was when I was, despite being on all this medication, when I was bedridden, when I had my son. After the delivery, it just threw me back worse than ever before. And it got to a point that I couldn't even hold my baby. I couldn't hold him, I couldn't enjoy him, and that's not, as a new mother, it's really hard to deal with that. My husband would put him down on the side of my bed, and I would just be able to look at him and smell him, and that's it. And that's when I decided that this is ridiculous. And my doctors at this point were saying, this is how your life is going to be. You're going to have to accept it. You could be bedridden for a while, for a long time. We don't know, but we'll keep giving you more medications to help you be comfortable. So one day my son was lying down next to me and I was looking at him and I said, this is so ridiculous. You can't bring a child into this world and be like this. And my whole life with him flashed forward where he was growing up and other people were taking care of him. My husband was taking care of him, and I wasn't able to participate in any of his, milestone moments and the day-to-day thing. And then this fear overcame me that, because I'm not going to be able to spend that kind of time, he's not going to know who I am and he's not going to love me. And that just blew my mind and scared the hell out of me. It's like, no, I'm the mother. He should know me. I should be able to hold him. I should be able to care for him just like everyone else. So that day I put my hand on his tiny little body and made a promise to him that I'm going to be there for you emotionally, physically, and provide you a normal life. And that's when I just shut everybody out, went internal, listened to my internal wisdom. And when I did that, the right people came into my life. Then a friend of mine, she was a research scientist and she was a cancer detection specialist. She had discovered the whole food supplement Juice Plus. So she told me about it. She didn't tell me about it, but she said, take it. So I started taking that. And that really was a great catalyst in getting me to being healthier. So in 4 months, I was able to get up and walk around, take care of myself. Within 6 months, I was able to take care of my son and enjoy him and hold him. And then after that, I went through different processes of working on my, really clearing out the food, making sure I'm not eating processed food, getting to a healthier lifestyle. Then I was able to exercise again. And then I went deeper into working on my mindset and added spirituality. And this was over a span of like 10 years because there was no one really there was no coach or anything to really guide me step by step. It was all trial and error. So I finally got to the point where I was living a very active and full life. And during this time, we even had a project management consulting and training business where we traveled globally, went to India for 6 months, turned out to 10 years, where we trained nearly 100,000 people, set up best practices for Fortune 500 companies. We received an award of excellence that only 5 people in the world had received at that time. And during this healing journey, I learned, 3 valuable lessons. The first one was that you really need to have belief in yourself. We are so ready to believe other people outside of us, other experts and families. We're ready to believe them first before we trust ourselves. And in my case, I just knew deep down in my gut and heart that I wasn't crazy. All the people around me were telling me. So I had to trust myself and believe in myself before anyone else did. And the second one is that your mindset really has to shift. And as an Indian, we were always taught that you have to give first take care of others first. You don't take care of yourself first. If you do, then you're deemed as being selfish. But I discovered during my journey that self-care is probably the most selfless thing you can do, because that's a practice of becoming the best version of yourself. And when you're the best version of yourself, then you're able to give better quality of giving to others. And then first one was that the number one lesson is that if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. You can't do anything. And that is the first thing that we take for granted. So we really need to focus on the physical body and that health, because that's the vehicle that we need to do anything we want in life. So that's how I've switched my career in helping people learn the best practices of how to get things done, to how to get things done by taking care of yourself, your body, so then you can have a successful career, a life, be able to leave a legacy behind on what you want to in your area.
And that's one lesson. That's thank you for sharing your story, and it is amazing. I'm like, I've never experienced that, the experience that you had with health, but I've dealt with other issues that's kind of not allowing me to be 100% with my 2-year-old right now. So somehow it's like in a different context, but I can totally relate how important it is for you to want to be with your child, but then you won't be able to physically be there, and you took on that step in believing that you're right and ended up finding the solution for your health, and that's amazing transformation. And that, thank you so much for helping everybody else to be aware of this. So
yeah, no, I think it's really important. So many of us, we don't really share our story. And I too, Pan, didn't realize that I did something amazing or great until I started sharing my story with a few people, and they started saying, "This is so huge. This is unheard of. Not many people do this." So because we're in the process, we think, "Oh, no big deal," because this is what is supposed to happen. But that's why I started more proactively sharing my story, because you don't realize what you've done until others point it out. So when people are telling you you've done something great, start listening to them, and then start sharing if that's what you feel called to do.
definitely. And there's people out there that are going to relate to your story, and you can change your lives by just sharing your story.
Yes, yes.
Definitely. All right, so let's talk about mindset. So how this whole thing of like limiting beliefs, or about what you really are, like, passionate about, and how people can just change from the mindset standpoint.
Sure. When I was researching on autoimmune disease, I found that in America alone, 50 million Americans have autoimmune disease, and 80% are women. And 90% of the issues that take you to having such a disease is because you're not able to emotionally express yourself, be able to share your feelings. And that could be due to because we don't feel good enough, we don't feel worthy enough. And when you're feeling those kind of things, it's generally because of your lifestyle or circumstances growing up as a child, where we are either told not to, if you've grown up in the 60s, 70s, and maybe even 80s, children were always supposed to be seen and not heard, right? So don't express yourself, don't share your opinions, don't don't basically have a voice. And it was really hard to discover your own voice because you were so told to be quiet all the time. And so that can lead to a lot of limiting beliefs, right? So you need to first see, what is the limiting belief that's holding you back from moving forward? Identifying that when you're living in that state, you don't even realize that that isn't a limiting belief, that you're working through that. Just see, in order to see what state you're in, just see what kind of thoughts you're having throughout the day. You'll find that typically it's the same kind of thoughts, most of the time negative, and it's the same. And that we have about 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's how busy our minds are. And 80% of them are repeated of the same thing. So that can really, and if you think we become an autopilot and keep thinking that. And it's really important to start noticing, changing that, because it becomes such a subconscious level thing. You don't even realize you're doing it, that it even gets embodied in your body, which leads to some form of disease.
Right. So how do you start changing that? Like, what if they don't notice it and other people point it out and they don't believe it? So at what point, I mean, it has to be at a point where they physically, their thoughts are physically affecting them, and it's affecting their relationship with others and their career or whatever they're doing, for them to make a change. What is the factor or factors that make people start making changes?
So one practice that I like to share that I did is called reframing. So every time I thought, I'm not good enough, so I made a list of all the thoughts I was having, all the feelings that I was having. I made a list of that to see what it was. And then I would reframe it. So when I thought I'm not good enough, I wrote, I am good enough, right? And then I wrote what I'm good at. I made a list of all the strengths. We focus so much on our weaknesses. I started writing down what my strengths were. And then I would reframe it. And then I would repeat it several times a day. I would make a mantra out of it. I'm good enough. I'm a great mom. I'm a great wife. I'm great at, cooking. So I would list those items that was physically evidence-based for me. Those are things that I've done, and those things that other people were saying that I was good at. You're such a great mom. You're so attentive. It doesn't matter who's around. So I started looking at those things and started making a list of that. So I made one side was a list of all the things that I'm not good at, or my limiting beliefs, or the negative thoughts I was having. Then I would reframe the same thoughts into something positive. And then I would repeat it. Now what you can do is record those positive thoughts when you reframe the reframe thoughts onto your phone and listen to it throughout the day.
Those are great strategies. I've actually just read a book, and in the book it talked about reframing as well. So speaking of books, tell us more about your book that you co-authored with The Authorities.
Yes, so The Authorities I published last May, and it's with the three of New York Times bestselling authors, Dr. John Gray from Mars and Venus series, Marci Shimoff. She wrote Happiness for No Reason, and she's one of the few females who has a maximum amount of sales in the personal development, self-help area, 16 million, I believe. And then Raymond Aaron, who wrote Double Your Income Doing What You Love. And in this, my chapter was called Break Free from Your Pain Cycle, Becoming an Autoimmune Warrior. And I shared my journey of how I was able to overcome my situation, my illness. How I decided that's the first thing you have to do, is make a decision of what you want. And I decided that I was going to heal, I was going to get better no matter what. So once I took that stance, then I was able to craft out my plan and what and how I was going to do, and just trust the process and then have things unfold for me. So that was one really exciting that I started with that. And since I've been helping so many other women, uh, you know, supercharge themselves, I have a program called Break Free, Supercharge Yourself, where you're really kind of rebooting, recharging your body, your mind, mindset, a movement, all the 4 factors that I used to heal. And now I'm helping them share their own message in their own books or anthologies. I have my next one coming out, Break Free to Stand in Your Power, which is releasing June 2020. And I have about 17 co-authors in there with me.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations on those publications and the new programs coming up and books coming up. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now you're off all your medications?
I'm on one medication now,
Oh, okay.
hypothyroid. It just doesn't want to leave me yet. So, but my dosage has been decreased quite a bit. So I can say pretty soon I can say 0.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So in terms of your diet, so what has changed from what you used to eat and what you're eating now?
It's basically clean diet, low sugar, low carb, no bread, unfortunately. But I have my cheat days because I love bread. So basically, a plant-based diet, being active, having some form of exercise at least 3 to 5 times a week, at least 3 times, and really being in check with my mindset. So you have to continuously work on these things. It's not like, okay, I use these things to overcome and now I'm done with, I don't have to do anything. If I don't do it, I'll get back to where I had been. So it's a continuous process of implementing the same framework that I used to get better. So clean diet, exercise, continuously having positive thoughts. Meditation is a big one too. I meditate every day, at least for 5-10 minutes, if not longer. But meditating on a daily basis really helps me be more present and be more centered and grounded. So when life is coming at me from all angles, I'm able to handle it much better.
That's awesome. You said no bread. You mean like in terms of what ingredients in the bread you cannot have because of the gluten or other ingredients?
Yeah, so basically gluten-free diet. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because my husband came up with a recipe it does have gluten, I think, but it can be without gluten. But he came up with a keto-free one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So meditation, is there like specific type of meditation that you do? Do you like say a mantra, or do you visualize, or do you like, what style of meditation do you do?
Oh, it's different every time, but I've become an energy healing practitioner also during this journey. So I follow pranic healing, and there's some specific meditations around that. I'm also a Reiki master, so there was some specific meditation around that. But even if you just go on YouTube and get any guided meditation to start with, even for 5 minutes, that would do. Even just sitting quietly and coming up with your own mantra when you do the reframe, coming up with a mantra that works for you. It's just repeating that over and over again for 5-10 times at a time, or for 5 minutes at a time, will really do wonders.
That's awesome. I actually just started transcendental meditation a couple of weeks ago, and you basically do that twice a day for 20 minutes per session, and that's been pretty amazing so far.
Have you been able to do it twice a day?
Yes, actually, I did miss like the second day. I missed the morning session, but I've been actually like somehow being able to squeeze it in, even in the car sometimes, like right before I go to work or right before I go to bed. I try to do it.
That's great. What benefits have you seen so far?
More clarity, like more confidence, and actually more like more goal or focus, meaning in terms of not getting distracted with basically prioritizing things better. Yeah, I'm making better decisions.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's what you get from all of this. I notice that when I am meditating on a regular basis, that I get things done faster. You know, I could be may take me a half a day, you know, a set of activities that may take a half a day. I can get done in like an hour or two.
Yep. Definitely I've been more productive. So that's a really good point as well.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks. All right. So, well, in terms of your programs and your books, how can they find you on like social media, a website?
Yeah, so you can go to www.seemagiri, that's SEEMAGIRI.com, and my Facebook page, Break Free to Stand in Your Power.
Okay, great. So if listeners have questions or are interested in your program, they can reach out to you through one of those ways.
Yes, definitely. And I actually have just opened up enrollment for my Break Free and Supercharge Yourself. So you can end the year with a bang and start. Do you know that we're starting a whole new decade in 2020? I just realized we're starting a whole new decade in 2020. So this is a great time to supercharge yourself and start a brand new decade really active and productive.
That's so true. Before we go, I want to ask, what is one important takeaway that you've learned from somebody else that is very, very impactful for you and that you like to share with listeners? And
you know, I read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes.
the year of
She realized she was saying no so many times that she just started saying yes to almost everything. And when I read that, I realized also that we hold ourselves back so much, and I do that too. And it's out of fear. You know, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'm good enough for that. What will other people think? So I started doing the same thing. I started saying yes more, even though I was afraid of something, even if I thought I was not qualified enough. I started saying yes more, which really has really propelled myself personally with my courage and being active, really action oriented, and really has propelled my business as well.
Wow,
Start
that's
saying
awesome.
yes more.
Okay, great. I gotta check out that book. That sounds really great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story and your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Pan. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing this kind of work as well. You're in wellness as well, and you're spreading information to so many people, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.